Are you live streaming, Andre?
Yes, I just started.
Great.
So, welcome back, everyone. There's not that many. Sorry?
Did you already kind of like introduce like what we're going to do in the session to people?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Okay,
No, I think, or like in a minute. I think there's still a couple of people joining in. All right. Yeah, whatever. I'll just start, and then whoever needs to will be able to rewatch or like rewind it. Cool. So this is basically live stream session number 2. We had yesterday number 1. Done a lot of stuff for today. There's a couple of hours of work behind us again. So for today we went through everything that we did yesterday with the research and created individual concepts. So here you can see all the different sketches from every one of us. And what we've also already done, and by the way, yeah, drawing this was like a very kind of structured step-by-step process, but we did it asynchronously. So some of us did it at home, and Philip and I did it remotely. And yeah, then we looked at those and voted on the ideas that were kind of the most interesting or seemed to be the most interesting with these little red dots, which is pretty neat because you don't really talk about anything. You just like look at what everybody has drawn and then vote on what's interesting. And based on that, we decided that one of these concepts seems to be kind of the most complete in terms of the user story and what it's telling. And what the next steps would be basically is combining everything into one. So slowly getting from what we've created individually and what we thought would be our individual solutions to the long-term goal and sprint questions, and creating something like a cohesive user story that encompasses all the different elements that are unique to what we've made ourselves, and yeah, combines them into one storyboard. So one of the things that we've done in order to do this, or like what we need to do, is create a user story, like a step-by-step journey that we want people to go through when we build a prototype or when we show it to them. So you really want to make sure that not only you have the screens that you're building, but you're also guiding someone through the step-by-step process that you want people to experience when they use the product. And in this case, it's actually quite interesting because a lot of these steps are not very self-evident. So we need to kind of introduce a lot of things using interaction design and I guess proper interface design to make them understand how everything works. So there's 4 journeys that we've individually created. This whole session that we'll live stream will be basically kind of showing how it looks when we write things out and then combine them. The first step is already done, so I mean, that wouldn't have been super fun, but what we've done earlier was just a 10-minute session of writing down individual stories. So A, B, C, D, different people, and each of these rows are individual kind of stories, and we'll do a round of voting now. And after the voting, we'll know what is kind of the most interesting. Before we do, though, I think we should go through go through every one of these stories and just kind of read them out so we know, so that everybody knows what they're about. I know you've all read them already, but it's probably still better to kind of repeat and see if there's anything like still unclear or missing. And once we combine that, that'll be the basis for the story that we'll be doing tomorrow. So yeah, let me just maybe start because my row is the first one, and I'll just kind of read out what's there. So my story was kind of simple, and it starts off with the user seeing that they can support Harmony, and they get on the page, and they know that they get a higher return. Then from there, they go into the Hummingbot page, which explains that it's a 3-step process of how to install or how to set up the bot and run it, and how to make sure you generate money by supporting liquidity. They sign up, get an API key, and install Hummingbot. they go to the dashboard, which shows the running bot next to the next payout and also kind of more markets. And after a while of running the bot, they can look at their account details and see the overall activity based on the snapshots, which is kind of this block explorer idea. And then at the end, they kind of explore more markets and can sign up for a new trading pair to run their bot on. So yeah, that was my rough story. Who was B? Maybe you can carry on.
I have a question for clarification.
Yeah.
So in the third step, you say they sign up, get an API key, install Hummingbot. Isn't that the user should provide the API viewing key?
Yeah.
Instead, because that's the exchange API key.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. It was just about the connection.
So B is me. So I'll this one is relatively similar to Andre's, and I'll kind of like go through it and highlight some of the differences. So I think when the user lands on the partner page, I'm assuming that this contains information about how it works, and they can find information otherwise on a marketing site about how it works. So when they get started, I think they should automatically kind of like start that setup process, which is really about collecting their Ethereum address, their email address, and having them agree to the terms and conditions, which is basically this step. And then I think at the end of the setup process, they should be prompted for the download of the Hummingbot client. After they download, there's like a page that says "Thank you for downloading," and shows them like what information they need afterwards to get it up and running. I'm assuming here that the user is the configuring client and they're running a marketing bot. I think that providing the read-only API key is an important part of this process. I just kind of like didn't account for that when I put my story in, but I would imagine that it's like during this. I would say it's somewhere either in step 3 or prior to step 4 that they'll need to do that. Once they start running the bot, I think one of the main questions on their mind is this bot actually running? Is Hummingbot actually, tracking my information correctly and giving me the correct credit? So I think that it's important for the app to have some type of like status indicator, that tells people whether they actually are earning stuff, and if they're not, that's probably because they didn't put in their API key correctly, and they need to go and fix that. And then finally, once they kind of like see how it worked the first time, then they can explore the rest of the app to see what else they can do.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. Thank you. That's really nice. Makes a lot of sense. C, I think it's Charlie, right?
C for Charlie, yeah. Going through mine. It's one thing to say is a little bit complex because I've been thinking about the sprint goals and it goes through the whole onboarding process, which I think would be a little bit hard for us to test because we probably can't live test somebody setting up a bot, so we have to make an assumption that kind of some time passes as we do the user tests as a result. So the first one, I said Harmony, but it could be any exchange partner. One of Harmony's users goes to Harmony partner landing page to learn how they can earn return mining liquidity. They learn how it works and click Get Started. The user enters the app at this stage. They see the rate of return and understands the steps to set up. They click Start Setup. They then enter a wizard where they download and install Hummingbot and they create the first bot. Ideally, in the future, these could be joined together somehow. But for now, let's just assume they go and create the bot. This all works. It start running back. As I understand, I might have just heard wrongly from the first one. But they get the API keys from the Hummingbot CLI. Is that right, Mike?
No. So this is actually kind of, I would say this is probably the most user unfriendly part of the process. Currently, like users have to basically get 2 API keys from the exchange in order to really use Hummingbot and earn rewards. The first API key is a trade API key, which it allows essentially the bot to operate. And so that trade key is what is sticking into the client configuration. Okay, second key. It could be the same key, but I would say it doesn't need to be because, like, frankly, we ourselves, the second key is basically what we use to collect information about their orders from the exchange itself. And that is basically they're entering the second key into the app so that we actually have access to it and we can actually read that information. So I call these 2 keys a trade key and a read-only key. This is actually, I realized there was some confusion around the data flows, which is why I added a little section below this that just to like illustrate the flow of data that the different parts of the system needs. I think it'll help you guys kind of like understand how it works. I would say I think this process can be improved, I guess. I think the real conundrum is that we want to make sure that these keys are only available to whoever needs them, right? Like frankly, we don't want access to anyone's trade-only API keys because, that's information that they should only, should be protected. And so that's why, ideally, we want the user to just put the trader key into the client and only give us a read-only key. And so that's kind of the why it's designed that way. We could, frankly, make the user give us one single key. That would actually make it easier, and we could like preload that into the client. However, the fear there is that it's kind of like it's more user friendly. It's also might scare off users who are really concerned about security, and also might expose us to having information that is sensitive for users.
Okay. Okay, so I've changed that to get the API keys. The next, they create the account by entering the email, connecting a wallet, and entering the API key. After setup, the user is directed to the dashboard. They can see live bots, the earnings, the next payout, and the block explorer. And then I added one in here because I thought it was kind of relevant. The user goes to the trading page to see active bots and additional traded pairs with rate of return.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, sounds good. And let's go through D for Philip.
Yeah, so my user journey also starts with visiting the partner's landing page, or a landing page that is branded by one of the partners. The user gets really excited because he or she understands that they can support their favorite project, and also they can earn interest pretty easily by a 3-step process. The user decides to give it a try and clicks on the get started button, which opens up a MetaMask sign-in window. Then the user is presented various markets and options for making a market maker bot. And so the user selects a trading pair and selects all the different kind of settings for running this bot and downloads this pre-configured bot. And the user is asked to enter his reading API key and also in order to get monitoring alerts, the user enters an email address and then runs the bot. And then after he started running bot, he gets back to the dashboard/performance page to check whether the bot is running active and the how the returns are. And after a while, he also tries to get his payouts.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, that also looks pretty nice. Thanks. So there's a lot of overlap. I think we'll definitely be able to find something that's good. So for now, let's do the round of voting for 3 minutes. Take these dots on the top left, and Philip, Charlie, and I will just use one each. and we'll just decide on a row. And Mike, you can have two, so you can vote on a row or like two rows. Ideally, you would have one row and like one element from anywhere else.
Okay.
If you really need more, then we can talk about that later. But like, let's try and keep it as succinct as possible, and then kind of combine what we have, because I think there'll be a lot to combine about. So I'm going to set the timer on 3 minutes, and I'll see you at the other end. I would normally put music on now, so it's a little bit awkward this time.
There's like open source music that you can play.
Actually, SoundCloud might work. Hold on.
Oh yeah, SoundCloud. SoundCloud should be doable. Oh, I know actually. There's Audius as well.
Audius. Right.
Audius is a new decentralized SoundCloud project.
I know them. Yeah.
They're actually they launched I think about a month ago. And,
oh sweet. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Generating beats. I'm just gonna press the play button. Have fun, guys.
I'm sure about that.
Okay.
It's definitely an experiment.
Yeah. This sounds interesting. Daft Punk. Okay. Maybe that's good.
Should we vote now or wait till?
Yeah, just vote wherever, whenever you like. Oops. Awesome. Okay. That worked well. Cool. So, yeah, let's see. We have this one, number C. Let's see what's there. So, okay, we have one of Harmony's users goes to the Harmony page, enters the app, downloads, installs it, goes through the wizard, puts the API keys in. I'm just trying to see if there's anything that's kind of missing from another one. Yeah, I guess since you voted on since that makes sense as the, or like which bits from the second one do you think, Mike, would make sense to add in?
Yeah, so,
or like how to combine them?
I think actually all of these are relatively similar. Actually, it's just like, almost like how we describe the different steps and expand the different steps. So I voted for C mostly because I feel like it was the most like complete in terms of like actually describing each action in a separate card.
Mm-hmm.
So, my sense was that the other ones also, I think we're all kind of saying the same thing. We're just expressing it differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I would say the one thing that I think is this is basically like how Hummingbot works is that I think it's hard to kind of like do the configuration outside of the Hummingbot client because it's like we're constantly adding parameters and like changing like how these different strategies work. So like it's kind of like it will be really easy to be outdated, like out of date between like the app and the client. So I think some of these, like for instance, like there's a card which is like user kind of like selects a trading pair and like configure something, and they download like the configuration and runs that in the client. I think that's actually going to be probably more complicated than just any configuration in the client itself.
Yeah.
I know when I was sketching this out, I was really trying to make sure that it had a purpose, that it had to have like a real justification for why there was a separate application to another application. And the reason being is that this would be very much a monitoring tool, and to make that really clear throughout.
I think it's really clear. I would say I think it's also, like one thing that people don't realize is like the reason why Hummingbot is a desktop application is because it's storing all these like sensitive information, like your full private keys, your trade only API keys, and so forth. And so it's like I almost wonder if like we can almost convey that. Almost like we want you to only put your private information in places that
on
you
your
don't
machine.
control.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like it was like sorry.
Oh yeah, so and also one more thing. So the reason I added this like dot on the wizard, so I really like the idea of this wizard. It's like it's clear that there's like three probably main things that people need to do before they can start earning money. They have to download Hummingbot, which is like that's easier now, but it used to be this whole complicated like Docker process. That's number one. The second thing they need to do is to basically add their trade API key into the bot so it can actually do bot type stuff. And the third thing they need to do is they need to give us their read-only API key so that they can start earning rewards. And so I think there is like essentially a fairly complicated setup process that's necessary before users can start earning stuff. I think by making those steps like clear in a wizard, that really helps a lot. The one caveat is I think we should make this wizard almost like non-blocking in a way. Does that make sense? Where it's like it may take some time, for instance, to get that API key from the exchange and like figure out what it is and so forth. So I think users should be able to like complete, just like the sign-in process, put in their email, put in their ETH address, and like finish that part off before they have to like put in the API key from the exchange. Does that make sense, Charlie?
That makes sense. Yeah, I actually, when I first started thinking through this this morning, I was wondering almost if it was not a wizard, but it was like stages you had to tick off, and you had like a stage.
That's kind of like one of those like onboarding like checklist type of things. I think it's important because it's like I think communicating, like breaking down the steps into like 3 or 4, like and allowing the users to complete them. At their discretion almost is important. Will be important to just making sure that people complete the process and they can start earning money.
Yeah, I almost like in my head one of the sketches I had and I discarded it was having a complete setup sort of icon in somewhere in the interface.
I think that might be a good direction. I would say to me actually it's just like one product of this discussion. I think has been. I feel like this onboarding process is quite important, and almost like I think we should think more about that process than just like even how to just display the data, because displaying the data is actually pretty straightforward. We can there's like a few ways we can do it, but I think the simpler we can make the onboarding process, the more likely it is to actually get growth.
The one reason I didn't make it so you could go back and forth is by having the wizard. It kind of gave users like a clear next step. And I almost thought that you would go away, but then if you return back to it, you would then see the next stage of what you had to complete. And I wonder if it's just worth quickly looking at this now and just making sure that the wizard goes in the right steps. I think from what you were saying, it sounds like creating an account needs to come almost before they download and install, so that they can then get back to this.
Yeah, and the other reason we want to do that was because then we can detect if they haven't completed it. We can send them like a marketing email with like, hey, like did you know you should be doing this and that?
Should we? Oh yeah, thanks. Okay. Yeah. So that would be, they create an account. Would they?
Yeah. So I think this is right. So the first step is probably them just signing up. Like just giving us just signing up. The second step is probably downloading the client. I think the third step, what I was called, like right now we have like, it's really there's two steps. One of these API keys is getting the trade API key so the bot can actually run. And the second one is getting the read API key so that we can track the data.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder which way around that would make sense then. So if they, where did they get the read-only API key?
Yeah, so they get the read-only API key, both the read and the trade API key from the exchange.
From the exchange, okay.
So they go into the exchange website, they log in, and so I do think it makes sense to like do those two steps at the same time, because it's like you can go there and you can create a key. So you might as well create two keys while you're there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. So it shouldn't necessarily be separate, but more like when they sign up, they get prompted to go to the exchange, generate the keys. Is it straightforward to generate the keys on the exchanges? Is it? Okay.
That's pretty straightforward, and I think we have like some help guides that show people how to do this.
Cool. Okay.
But it's different for every single exchange.
Yeah, of course. Okay.
At this stage of the wizard, we could almost have those guides embedded, or just the link to it in the version.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of how I envisioned that happening.
I'm just thinking if they should first get the API keys and then install, so that they can basically, when they have the API keys, that they then install everything and then don't have to go from there.
Yeah, that's true. So this is slightly tricky, but I would say I think we want them to. Well, to be honest, I'm not really sure. But the one complication here is that like there's multiple exchanges, right? Like there's like, and so the user, when they kind of like first start, like they download the bot, like before they download the bot and start using it, they may not actually know which exchanges they want to run the bot on.
Yeah.
Some may know, some may not. So like I feel like in some ways, some users will actually want to download the bot and just like run it in paper trading mode, like that, before they add API keys.
Okay. Yeah. Huh.
So just so they can understand, like.
You want to get it in their hands as soon as possible so they can start playing around with it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I should mention, by the way, so understanding how Hummingbot works is like, you don't need any API keys to do that, because you can just do what we call paper trading mode, where you kind of like just say, hey, I assume I have like one BTC and ETH, and run a dummy bot and see how that performs. So we added that feature specifically to so that people did not have to provide any private information or use your real money before.
I think we can actually do both, because I think what we're the story that we're going through is that we're promising them something that will actually generate money, and I think we should probably primarily try to stick to making that as easy as possible, but still give them a way to kind of skip the steps. So at least, I mean, my suggestion would be to let them sign up and get them to find the API keys, but at the same time say, you can also skip that step and go into downloading Hummingbot right away and play with it. But you'll have to do it later on. Because then if they actually want to go through it, they will go through it straight away and kind of have the biggest burden solved already, so they can later on just kind of fill everything in and get started. But if they don't, they can still skip it, and then almost like in an onboarding, they don't care, or like they don't want to read through stuff, they just want to play around.
It sounds like the only thing about that is that it sounds like quite a lot of the time you might not know which API keys you've needed until you started playing around with it. Like you said,
that's also a good point.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. So yeah, to me, I like the idea of like almost like a checklist where it's like, you know, you need to complete like all 4 steps in order to like start earning money, but you can accomplish any of the 4 like, well, except for the sign up part. Like you have to sign up first, but after you sign up, you know, like the other steps are like complete any order you want.
Right. Okay.
But yeah. So I think the onboarding part is something we can talk about. Also, I should mention I have a lunch right now. So
oh right. Okay.
Jump pretty soon.
Okay, then let's finish this up quickly. Is there anything that's still missing in terms of steps? We can talk about tomorrow if they need to like be rearranged. But
yeah, I don't think so actually.
Okay.
I think that it's funny because I feel like it's. I thought that we've spent most of this time talking about like what the app looks like and the data, but it seems like actually we're pretty unified on how to display the data. It's more about how to get people into using the app.
Yeah. Well, that's I guess
one important feature that I as a user would like to see somewhere within the monitoring pages is the option to set alerts, so that you know that your bot is performing correctly, and in case something is wrong, that you get an email notification or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. Yeah, it's something that we can easily do that from a technical perspective. It's just something we haven't really thought of. But that's a really good point that people want to get notified, and that's actually one reason they could put their email in, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's also something that mining pools also they also have this feature. Because I mean, and it does make even more sense for financial trading bot. To know that everything is working correctly.
I'm gonna put that on the post-it so we can kind of take that in consideration tomorrow, because it's one of those like tiny details that we might just fill in at some point when we find the place for it. And apart from that, cool. So if there's nothing else to add, then let's just take that one and wrap up for today. And then tomorrow we will basically we will redistribute those across the screens. And then and then tomorrow we'll basically draw out the screens, combine them from all the sketches, and put in any details that we're still missing. So if there's anything like alerts or any details that we need, we'll just do it tomorrow. But for today, that's basically all we had to do, is create the concepts, write them out, vote on them, and do the user story.
Great.
And
great.
looks
and then I just want to draw, in case you guys see it, I had a little like data flow diagram below this section. That's just for you guys to understand like the flow of data inside our system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super cool. Thank you. I think that helps a lot.
Thank you very much.
That helps a lot to understand the complexity of this whole thing.
It is complicated, and I think we're looking for a way to simplify this. But
definitely, yeah.
Right now, it is what it is.
Cool. All right, then, let's finish up for today, and I hope you have some amazing lunch. I'll stay online for a little bit, and just like whoever is still watching, I'll just show a couple of screens from the concepts. But thanks for today. That was pretty awesome. I'm really happy with where we are. And
likewise. See you guys tomorrow.
Cool. Yeah. See you tomorrow, man.
See you later.
Cool. See you.
See you, everyone. I'm just gonna go a little bit through concepts for whoever is still watching, just like to show what's there. Maybe there's something interesting in terms of what this whole thing might look like, to kind of explain what this whole product is supposed to be. So for whoever is still watching, you guys, you can also just leave. Like you don't have to watch. But I'll take it in only 5 minutes, so we can also.
I'm gonna get some sleep because this has been tough and complex and fun.
Cool.
Thank you very much, Andre.
Thanks to you. All right. Have a good night, man.
See you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye. Andre, could you go once more about what the plan for tomorrow will look like?
Oh yeah. So tomorrow we will take this and basically redistribute these post-its across the storyboard. So step by step, every single step that we've mapped out today, we'll basically map onto every individual screen and then fill them out with everything that we've so far created. So all these sketches, they make a lot of sense in what exactly needs to be designed, and we'll put them in, fill them in with as much details as possible, with as much data as possible. So on Thursday, Charlie and I will have a good basis to design it exactly as it's supposed to look, and with all the details that Mike has provided, and with everything that we've kind of merged together. So tomorrow we'll just basically just talk through everything that needs to be done and try to jam it together. It's going to be very tough, but it's also the final step that's kind of the most important one.
Yeah. Sounds good.
It's the magical merging. So yeah, you can also feel free to go sleep. I will just like show people these things.
All right, yeah. Then have a good night, Andre.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks. You too. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye bye. I can just end this. So thanks a lot for everybody who's watching. I'm just gonna show you a couple of things that. Here's my face. Is it my face? No, it's not. Okay, it's not working. Anyway, so I'm gonna show you. There's my face. I'm going to show you a couple of things from the concept. So as you've seen yesterday, we talked a lot about trading bots and different mining pools and interfaces that should get people from signing up for a bot to provide liquidity for a project, and then basically starting a bot with Hummingbot that trades a specific pair of tokens back and forth and generate liquidity for these tokens, and also provide a reward for whoever is running it. So it's a little bit like if you're a market maker, you're creating a market between different projects, but now you can do it from your home in whatever way you like. So yesterday we mapped out this whole process going from very start to finish. There was nothing really clear, and we went through examples of how that might look, and today we sketched out what it could look. So you can see we're starting off with most projects or most concepts showing off a landing page that's branded by a project that people might want to support, and they can learn how they can contribute it with Hummingbot. Now all of these are actually completely different, but it's quite interesting because we found that there were a lot of similarities across those. So there was like this very easy step-by-step process and like this 3-step process, which which looks very similar here and is also replicated somewhere here, which kind of comes from this example actually. So people just took that and made use of it, and which is also super important if you want to kind of simplify this whole thing. You want to make sure that it's super easy. And most people also try to show something like a dashboard of how it could look, what you're actually generating, how much liquidity you have, and some more trading pairs. So it's actually quite difficult to explain that in words, and I don't think that makes a lot of sense. But I think based on what we'll do tomorrow, which will be basically combining all the best ideas, and you can actually see the best ideas here with the little red dots. When we combine those, we'll create this whole flow based on what we've already drawn out. So we won't actually have to we won't actually create anything new from scratch tomorrow, but we'll reuse all the individual bits and make them look coherent together, and in the end it's all supposed to solve these things. So as you can see, there's a lot of going out and then trying to merge back together. I really like the sorry for zooming in back and forth, by the way. I know this might be a little bit confusing. So there was a lot of going out and going back in together, and I think this is actually one of the most interesting bits because everybody gets to sketch out what they really think is valuable or what they really think would be their version of a product that they want to release. And as Michael said yesterday, everybody, even the people who are very technical or don't really do design at all, get to contribute and get to design things and draw things out visually, how they might think that could make sense. So these sketches also look very crappy on purpose, so you don't want to diverge or steal someone's attention by just making it look pretty. So that's why we kind of limit ourselves to only one color and a pen. And yeah, so this was, I guess, the basis for the concept that we're drawing out. So that's again, a landing page. People can get started with liquidity mining, and they see how much they could get. They would go into an interface where they can see their rewards. In between that, there would be obviously the sign-up process that we've just talked about for so long, because that's actually one of the most frictionful points. But we have some examples in the other concepts already. And then here in this case, there's an overview, different trading pairs. It's actually pretty detailed. Yeah, actually, this is already kind of similar to a sign-up process, so you would go through a step-by-step thing. And yeah, then that's kind of a screen of how it would look like it's running. That's the screen how it looks if you check your account and want to see when you get paid, because you get paid only weekly, this FAQs. And yeah, so this was another concept that was quite interesting actually, because it was super basic, but it also shows things like this block explorer with just showing different time snapshots of the whole system and showing you when the overall activity that you might have contributed to. And yeah, what else is there? That's quite cool. So there's sorting different markets and figuring out what are the trading pairs that are nice and getting started right away. This concept had a version of, or this version was suggesting basically pre-configuring everything in here and then going out and installing, downloading actually a pre-configured Hummingbot executable, which would be just running in the background, which would make sense, but it's also more complicated. So because it's very tricky, we decided not to do that already. And yeah, similar here. I think I'm just starting to repeat myself. So yeah, long story short, this is a pretty cool thing. I'm really excited for tomorrow, because tomorrow we'll be combining all of these. And this is actually also if you ever use any of those kind of techniques, this is almost like a very initial user test, because we're user testing each other inside the group, and you can see which ideas resonated really. So yeah, that's it for today. On the 11th, which is next Monday, we'll do a user test. So we'll do 5 of them, but I'll live stream 1, which would be basically with the completely designed prototype already. So whatever you can see here, we'll put into a super sketchy in a sense of very ugly storyboard, which is just kind of jamming together all the ideas and not making it pretty. And then we'll design that on Thursday and Friday, making it really look pretty. And then on Monday, we'll test it with a couple of people. So there's one user test scheduled that you can join. I don't know if you guys have any invites, it wherever you find this, I'm just gonna announce it here. So basically with the URL that you're on right now, so like live.deepwork.studio, or the one that you got on here, that'll show you the exact time, but the time will be on 5:30 p.m. European time, so Berlin time, 5:30 p.m. on Monday. I don't know exactly which time zone that would be for whoever is tuning in, but PST, that should be 8:30 a.m. maybe earlier, but I'll definitely put it on, and then you can look it up. And that'll be quite interesting, because we will go through, I'll show you the prototype and how it looks when it's fully designed, and I'll show you, we'll go through, like, you can actually watch the interview with someone who hopefully gives very honest feedback, but I'll also try to make it as honest as possible, because people are always different and they give different feedback, and you need to kind of guide them towards being honest. So yeah, on Monday I'll see you. If you have any questions, there's actually no way to write them. You can use the live stream though, so you can use the YouTube stream for posting comments, and I'll read those. Apart from that, send me an email. I don't know. hey@deepwork.studio. I think that's it. Have a wonderful night or day, and I'll see you latest on Monday. Bye bye.